The November rain hammered against the floor-to-ceiling windows of the Madison and Cross Financial Building, turning Manhattan into a blur of gray concrete and yellow taxi lights. Emma Carter sat at her desk on the 42nd floor, her green eyes scanning rows of numbers that seemed to blur together after 12 hours of continuous work. The office had emptied hours ago, leaving only the hum of computers and the distant rumble of thunder to keep her company. At 26, Emma had worked tirelessly to build her career as a financial analyst. Fresh out of Columbia with an MBA and a mountain of student debt, she'd clawed her way into one of the most prestigious firms in the city. Her small apartment in Queens, her second-hand Honda Civic, her lunch packed from home every day. These were the sacrifices she'd made willingly. Success was close enough to taste. She rubbed her tired eyes and glanced at the clock. 9:47 p.m. Her stomach growled, reminding her that the protein bar she'd eaten at 3 o'clock was long gone. Emma saved her work, the latest audit report for Meridian Holdings, a client she'd been assigned just 3 weeks ago. Something about their accounts had been nagging at her. Inconsistencies she couldn't quite explain, but her supervisor had dismissed her concerns with a wave of his hand. "You're overthinking it, Carter. Meridian has been with us for 15 years. Focus on the Henderson portfolio instead." But Emma couldn't let it go. The numbers didn't lie even when people did. She shut down her computer and gathered her things. A worn leather bag her mother had given her for graduation, an umbrella that had seen better days, and her phone, which showed 3 missed calls from her best friend, Sarah. Emma made a mental note to call her back once she got home. The elevator ride down felt longer than usual, the mirrored walls reflecting a young woman who looked more exhausted than she wanted to admit. Her auburn hair, usually styled in a neat professional bun, had loosened throughout the day, with strands framing her pale face. She'd lost weight recently. Stress and long hours had a way of killing appetite. The lobby was empty, except for Marcus, the night security guard, who looked up from his newspaper and smiled. "Burning the midnight oil again, Miss Carter?" "Something like that, Marcus. Have a good night." "You be careful out there. Weather's getting nasty." Emma pushed through the revolving doors and immediately regretted not bringing a heavier coat. The November wind cut through her blazer like ice, and the rain had intensified, creating small rivers along the sidewalk. She popped open her umbrella and began the 3-block walk to where she'd parked her car. The streets of Midtown Manhattan were still busy despite the hour. Taxis splashing through puddles, couples hurrying toward restaurants, businessmen rushing to catch the last trains home. Emma navigated through them mechanically, her mind already planning tomorrow's tasks. She needed to request additional documents from Meridian, needed to verify those offshore accounts, She stopped suddenly. A black SUV was parked directly across from her building, engine running, windows tinted so dark she couldn't see inside. Emma had noticed it there this morning when she'd arrived at 7. Had it been there all day? A chill that had nothing to do with the weather ran down her spine. "Don't be paranoid," she muttered to herself, continuing toward the parking garage. But as she walked, she couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. The sensation crawled across her skin like invisible fingers. She glanced over her shoulder. The SUV was still there, unmoving. Another black vehicle, a sedan this time, was parked 2 blocks down. Emma quickened her pace, her heels clicking rapidly against the wet pavement. The parking garage was just ahead, its concrete entrance illuminated by harsh fluorescent lights. Safety, her car, home. She didn't notice the third vehicle until it was almost too late. As Emma stepped off the curb at the intersection of 47th and 6th Avenue, everything seemed to slow down. The traffic light was red for vehicles, green for pedestrians. She was in the crosswalk, umbrella held high, when she heard it, the roar of an engine accelerating, not slowing. Her head snapped to the left. A black Mercedes was barreling toward her, headlights blazing, going at least 60 miles per hour in a 35 zone. There was no screech of brakes, no attempt to stop. The car was aimed directly at her like a guided missile. Time fractured into horrifying clarity. Emma's brain screamed at her legs to move, but her body had frozen in terror. The Mercedes was 20 feet away, 15. The rain-slicked street made running impossible. She was going to die on a Manhattan crosswalk. Just another tragic accident in a city of 8 million people. 10 feet. She heard someone scream. Maybe it was her own voice. She couldn't tell. 5 feet. And then something slammed into her from the side. Not the car. Something else. Someone else. A force that knocked her completely off her feet, sending her umbrella flying as strong arms wrapped around her body and pulled her backward with impossible strength. They hit the ground hard, rolling, her rescuer's body absorbing most of the impact as they tumbled across the wet pavement. The Mercedes roared past exactly where she'd been standing, missing them by inches. Emma felt the heat of its engine, smelled burning rubber, heard the crash of metal as it sideswiped a parked taxi before speeding away into the night, its license plate obscured by mud. For several seconds, Emma couldn't breathe, couldn't think, could only lie there on the cold, wet ground, her heart hammering so violently she thought it might explode from her chest. "Are you hurt?" The voice was deep, commanding, with the slight rasp of someone who'd smoked expensive cigars. It came from directly above her, and Emma realized she was still being held, pressed against a solid chest, arms wrapped protectively around her body. She managed to shake her head, unable to form words. "Good. Don't move yet. Let me look at you." The arms released her carefully, and Emma found herself staring up at a face that seemed carved from stone and shadow. The man kneeling beside her was perhaps in his mid-30s, with sharp, aristocratic features that would have been beautiful if they weren't so hard. Dark hair, slightly wet from the rain, fell across his forehead, but it was his eyes that captured her attention. Ice blue, intense, penetrating, the kind of eyes that saw everything and revealed nothing. He was dressed in an immaculately tailored black suit that probably cost more than her monthly rent, though it was now wet and torn at the shoulder from their fall. His hands moved over her arms and legs with clinical efficiency, checking for injuries, and Emma noticed his knuckles were scarred, the hands of someone who'd done violence. "Nothing broken," he said, more to himself than to her. "You'll have bruises. Can you stand?" Emma nodded, still unable to find her voice. He stood in one fluid motion and extended a hand. When she took it, his grip was firm, warm despite the cold rain, and he pulled her to her feet effortlessly. The world spun for a moment and she swayed. His hand immediately moved to her waist, steadying her. "Easy. You're in shock." Around them, a crowd had begun to gather. Emma heard voices, concerned questions. Someone saying they'd called 911. Her rescuer ignored them all, his attention focused entirely on her. "Did you see the driver?" someone asked. "I got a partial plate. That car didn't even try to stop. It was deliberate," the man holding Emma said, his voice cutting through the chaos like a blade. "That was an assassination attempt." The crowd went silent. Emma's eyes widened, meeting his. "What? No, that's crazy. It was just an accident. A drunk driver or... Look at me." His command was absolute, brooking no argument. Emma looked. That Mercedes was waiting. I watched it position itself. The driver timed your crossing perfectly. If you'd been 1 second faster or slower, you'd be dead right now. The words should have sounded paranoid, insane, but something in his absolute certainty, in the cold calculation in those blue eyes, made Emma's blood turn to ice. "Why would anyone want to kill me? I'm nobody. I'm just an analyst. You're not nobody." He reached into his jacket, and Emma tensed, but he only pulled out a phone. He typed something quickly, then looked back at her. "What's your name?" "Emma. Emma Carter." "Who are you? How did you—" "Dante Romano." He said it as if the name should mean something. When her confused expression didn't change, something almost like amusement flickered across his features. "You really don't know, do you?" Before Emma could respond, 2 more black SUVs pulled up, screeching to a halt at angles that blocked the intersection. Men in dark suits emerged, moving with military precision. They weren't police, that much was immediately obvious. "Mr. Romano," one of them said, approaching quickly. "Are you injured?" "I'm fine. Secure the area. I want camera footage from every building within 3 blocks. Find that Mercedes. It'll be ditched within 10 minutes, burned within 20. Move." The men dispersed without question, and Emma realized she was watching someone used to absolute authority. Dante turned back to her, and for the first time she saw something other than cold calculation in his expression, something that might have been concern, or perhaps possession. "You're coming with me." It wasn't a question. What? "No. I need to call the police, file a report. The police can't protect you from what's coming." He took her arm, gently but firmly, guiding her toward one of the SUVs. "You stumbled into something dangerous, Emma Carter. Something that people are willing to kill to keep hidden. And whether you understand it or not, you're in the center of a war now." "I don't understand anything." Emma tried to pull away, but his grip tightened. Not painfully, but inescapably. Fear finally broke through her shock. "Let go of me. You can't just... This is kidnapping." Dante stopped, turning to face her fully. In the harsh light of the street lamps and the flashing of approaching police sirens, his face was all sharp angles and dangerous beauty. When he spoke, his voice was low, meant only for her ears. Someone tried to murder you tonight, Emma. Not rob you, not hurt you, murder you. And that someone has resources, connections, and no conscience. In approximately 4 minutes, those police officers are going to arrive. You can go with them, file your report, go home to your apartment in Queens. Emma's eyes widened. How did he know where she lived? And by tomorrow morning, you'll be dead in your bed with a bullet in your brain. The words were delivered with such cold certainty that Emma felt her knees weaken. Or, Dante continued, his blue eyes boring into hers, you can come with me. I can protect you. I can find out who wants you dead, and why. I can keep you alive. Why? Emma whispered. Why would you do that? You don't know me. Something flickered across his face. Dark, possessive, almost predatory. He reached up and brushed a wet strand of hair from her face, his touch surprisingly gentle. Because the moment I pulled you from death, you became mine. Your life, your safety, your future, mine to protect, mine to control. He leaned closer, his breath warm against her cold skin. You're mine now, Emma Carter, and I protect what's mine. The words should have terrified her, should have sent her running toward the police, toward safety, toward sanity. But looking into those ice-blue eyes, seeing the absolute certainty there, feeling the strange pull of his presence, Emma felt something other than fear. She felt impossibly safe. I need to think. No time. The sirens were getting closer. Dante's hand moved to the small of her back, guiding her toward the SUV. Choose now, Emma. Police and death, or me and life. What's it going to be? Emma looked back at the crowd, at the normal world she understood. Jobs and rent and student loans and Friday drinks with Sarah. Then she looked at Dante Romano, at this dangerous, commanding stranger who'd saved her life and now claimed ownership of it. Every rational cell in her brain screamed at her to run. She got in the SUV. Dante slid in beside her, and the door closed with a heavy, final thud. The driver pulled away smoothly, navigating around the arriving police cars with practiced ease. Emma watched through the tinted window as her normal life receded into the distance, replaced by flashing lights and confusion. Where are you taking me? Her voice sounded small, foreign to her own ears. Somewhere safe. My penthouse. Top floor of the Romano Tower on 5th Avenue. Emma knew the building. 58 stories of steel and glass, luxury apartments starting at $10 million. She'd walked past it 100 times, never imagining she'd be inside. I need to call my friend. She'll worry when I don't. No calls, not yet. Anyone trying to kill you will be monitoring your phone, your friends, your family. Dante pulled out his own phone and handed it to her. Tomorrow you can call from a secure line. Tonight you disappear. The reality of the situation was beginning to sink in, replacing shock with a growing sense of unreality. Emma looked down at her hands. They were shaking. Her stockings were torn, her knees scraped and bleeding. She'd almost died. Someone had tried to murder her. I don't understand why, she whispered. I'm nobody important. I audit financial records. That's all I do. Dante studied her for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Financial records for which companies? Lots of them. Henderson Industries, Apex Capital, Meridian Holdings. She trailed off, noticing how his jaw tightened at the last name. What? What is it? Meridian Holdings. He said the name like a curse. You've been auditing Meridian Holdings. Yes, for 3 weeks. I found some irregularities in their offshore accounts, unusual transfers, but my supervisor said. Emma stopped, her analytical mind finally connecting the dots. Oh God, they're laundering money, aren't they? That's why the accounts don't make sense. That's why you're a liability, Dante finished. You saw something you weren't supposed to see, asked questions you weren't supposed to ask, and now you know too much. The SUV turned onto 5th Avenue, and Emma felt tears burning behind her eyes, tears of fear, exhaustion, and overwhelming confusion. Who are you? She asked again, her voice breaking. Who are you, really? Dante turned to look at her, and in the passing streetlights his face was all shadow and sharp edges. I'm the man who's going to keep you alive, he said. And in this city, Emma Carter, that makes me the most dangerous man you'll ever meet. The SUV pulled into an underground garage, descending into levels of concrete and security that seemed to go on forever. Emma realized with a sinking feeling that she'd just walked willingly into a cage. But as Dante's hand found hers in the darkness, warm and steady and strong, she couldn't quite bring herself to regret it. Not yet. Emma woke to sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows, the kind of golden morning light that made Manhattan look almost beautiful. For a disoriented moment, she didn't remember where she was. The bed beneath her was obscenely comfortable, wrapped in sheets that felt like liquid silk. The ceiling above her was high, decorated with subtle crown molding that spoke of old money and older power. Then it all came rushing back. The rain, the Mercedes, the blue eyes of the man who'd saved her, the man who'd claimed her. Emma sat up quickly, her heart racing. She was still wearing her clothes from last night, though someone had removed her torn stockings and ruined shoes. A soft cashmere blanket had been draped over her. Beside the bed on an antique nightstand sat a glass of water and 2 aspirin, along with a handwritten note in sharp masculine script. For the headache you'll have when you wake. Bathroom through the door on your left. Fresh clothes in the closet. Don't try to leave. You won't get past the first security checkpoint. We'll talk when you're ready. D. The casual arrogance of the note made Emma's jaw clench. She crumpled it in her fist and threw back the covers, her bare feet sinking into carpet so plush it felt criminal. The room was enormous, easily twice the size of her entire Queen's apartment, decorated in tones of cream and gold with tasteful modern art on the walls. Through the windows she could see Central Park sprawling below like a green jewel in the concrete crown of the city. She was high up, very high up. Emma found the bathroom and stopped short in the doorway, momentarily stunned. It was larger than her bedroom back home, all white marble and gold fixtures, with a shower that could fit 6 people, and a soaking tub carved from a single piece of stone. Fluffy white towels were stacked on heated racks, and an array of expensive toiletries lined the countertop, all unopened, she noticed, as if they'd been purchased specifically for her. The thought made her skin crawl and her stomach flutter in equal measure. She caught sight of herself in the mirror and winced. Her makeup was smudged, her hair a tangled mess, and dark circles shadowed her eyes. But it was the look in those eyes that disturbed her most, a mixture of fear and something else, something that looked disturbingly like excitement. "Get yourself together, Carter," she muttered, turning on the tap and splashing cold water on her face. 20 minutes later, showered and dressed in clothes she'd found in the closet, designer jeans that fit perfectly, a soft ivory sweater, and new shoes that were exactly her size, Emma steeled herself and opened the bedroom door. The penthouse beyond was breathtaking. She stepped into an open-concept living space that seemed to go on forever, all clean lines and expensive minimalism. The entire outer wall was glass, offering a panoramic view of Manhattan that must have cost a fortune. The furnishings were elegant but masculine. Leather sofas, dark wood, abstract art that Emma recognized from her art history classes as originals worth millions. But it was the man standing at the windows, coffee cup in hand, who commanded her attention. Dante Romano looked different in the morning light. He'd changed into charcoal slacks and a black dress shirt with the sleeves rolled up, revealing forearms corded with muscle and marked with scars. His dark hair was still damp, suggesting a recent shower. He turned as she entered, and those ice-blue eyes assessed her with an intensity that made her feel exposed. "You're awake. Good. Coffee?" The casual greeting after everything that had happened last night made Emma's temper flare. "Coffee? You kidnapped me, brought me to your fortress, and you're offering me coffee?" Her voice rose with each word. "I want answers. I want to know who you are, why you were there last night, how you knew someone was trying to kill me, and why the hell you think you have any right to keep me here." Dante's expression didn't change. He simply set down his cup and gestured to a tablet lying on the breakfast bar. "Read that first, then we'll talk." Emma wanted to refuse, wanted to maintain her anger, but curiosity won. She crossed to the tablet and picked it up, her fingers trembling slightly. The screen showed a news article from the New York Times published 3 hours ago. Financial analyst feared dead after hit and run in Midtown. Emma Carter, 26, a financial analyst for Madison and Cross Financial, is presumed dead after a fatal hit-and-run accident last night at the intersection of 47th and 6th Avenue. Police report that Ms. Carter was struck by a vehicle that fled the scene. Despite extensive searches, no body has been recovered, though witnesses report seeing the collision. The driver remains at large. Ms. Carter's family has been notified and requests privacy during this difficult time. Emma's legs gave out, and she sank onto one of the bar stools, the tablet nearly slipping from her nerveless fingers. "They think I'm dead," she whispered. We made sure they think you're dead, Dante corrected, moving closer. My people cleaned the scene before the police arrived. Removed your umbrella, your bag, any evidence you survived. As far as the world is concerned, Emma Carter died last night. My family, Emma's voice broke. Oh God, my parents, my sister, they think you're dead. Yes, it's better this way. Emma's head snapped up, fury replacing shock. Better? You think it's better that my family believes I'm dead? You had no right. I had every right. Dante's voice didn't rise, but it filled the space with authority. Because the alternative is them planning your real funeral within 48 hours. The people who tried to kill you last night aren't going to stop. They have resources, Emma. Money, connections, people in the police department, in the mayor's office, everywhere. If they knew you survived, they'd come for you again. And next time, I might not be there to pull you out of the way. The brutal honesty in his words silenced her protests. Emma looked back down at the article, at her own photo, a professional headshot from the Madison and Cross website, staring back at her. She looked so young in it, so naive, smiling at a camera with no idea that her life was about to explode. I still don't understand, she said quietly. Why were you there? How did you know? Dante poured 2 cups of coffee with practiced ease, adding cream to one without asking, somehow knowing how she took it, and set it in front of her. Then he settled onto the stool beside her, close enough that she could smell his cologne, something expensive and dark. Do you know what I do, Emma? You said your name like I should recognize it, but I don't. Should I? A ghost of a smile crossed his lips. Most people in this city know the Romano name. We're entrepreneurs. Import-export, real estate, legitimate businesses that make legitimate money. He paused, those blue eyes pinning her. And a substantial amount of money that isn't legitimate at all. The implication hung in the air between them. Emma couldn't quite say the word. Mafia, Dante said it for her casually, as if discussing the weather. 4th generation. My great-grandfather came from Sicily in 1923 and built an empire from nothing. My grandfather expanded it. My father consolidated it. And I'm trying to evolve it. Emma should have run. Should have screamed. Should have done anything except sit there, coffee cup warming her hands, listening to a mafia boss explain his criminal dynasty as if it were a TED Talk. You're insane, she breathed. This is insane. I need to leave. I need to go to the police. Tell them I'm alive, that I what? Saved your life? Gave you shelter? The police can't protect you, Emma. Half of them are on someone's payroll. Maybe mine. Maybe my enemies. You walk into a police station and you'll be dead before you finish giving your statement. Then I'll go to the FBI, the FBI. Dante's laugh was bitter. You think federal agents are immune to corruption? Emma, the people who want you dead operate at levels you can't imagine. They have senators in their pockets, judges on their payroll, agents on their leash. The only way you survive is if you're under my protection. Emma set down her coffee cup with a sharp click. And what exactly does your protection cost me? Something dangerous flashed in Dante's eyes. He leaned closer, invading her space, his voice dropping to a low rumble that she felt in her chest. I told you last night. You're mine now. That means you live where I say, go where I say, do what I say. It means your life, your safety, your future. All of it belongs to me until this is over. That's not protection, Emma said, meeting his gaze despite the fear coursing through her. That's ownership. In my world, they're the same thing. The silence stretched between them, charged with tension. Emma could feel her heart pounding, could feel the heat radiating from his body, could see the pulse beating at his throat. He was dangerous. Everything about him screamed danger. But God help her, she was drawn to him anyway. Why? She asked finally. Why do you care if I live or die? You don't know me. Dante studied her for a long moment, something unreadable crossing his features. 3 weeks ago, when you started auditing Meridian Holdings, you triggered an alarm in our system. We monitor certain companies, certain accounts. Meridian is owned by the Kozlov family, Russian mafia, my biggest rival. They use your firm to clean their money because Madison and Cross has a reputation for looking the other way when the price is right. Emma felt sick. My supervisor, he dismissed my concerns about their accounts. Because he's on their payroll, has been for 7 years. You asking questions, digging deeper, you became a problem. The Kozlovs decided to eliminate that problem permanently. But why do you care? Shouldn't you want your rival's secrets exposed? Under normal circumstances? Yes, but these aren't normal circumstances. Dante stood and moved back to the windows, his silhouette dark against the bright cityscape. 6 months ago, my younger sister was killed in what the police called a random mugging. She was 23 years old, Emma, a graduate student at NYU, smart, beautiful, with her whole life ahead of her. She had nothing to do with my business, nothing to do with this world. But the Kozlovs killed her anyway, just to hurt me. The pain in his voice was raw, real, and it made Emma's chest tighten. "I'm sorry," she said softly. "I'm so sorry. I've been hunting them ever since." Dante continued, his hands clenched into fists, trying to find proof of their operations, something that would let me destroy them completely. And then you appeared, this civilian analyst who stumbled onto evidence that could take down their entire financial network. The Kozlovs couldn't risk you talking, but He turned back to face her. "I saw an opportunity, and a young woman who reminded me of my sister, about to die for asking the wrong questions." Understanding dawned slowly. "You weren't just there by coincidence last night. You were watching me, for 3 days. Ever since we identified you as the analyst causing problems. I had men tracking you, making sure you stayed safe until I could figure out how to approach you. When I saw the Mercedes positioning itself," his jaw clenched, "I barely got there in time." Emma stood, her legs steadier now, her mind racing through implications. "So what now? You want me to testify against them? Give evidence?" "I want you to help me destroy them," Dante said flatly. "You have access to files, knowledge of their accounting practices, insights into how they move money. With your expertise and my resources, we can dismantle their empire piece by piece. But more importantly," he crossed back to her, close enough that she had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. "I want you alive. I failed to save my sister. I won't fail to save you." The intensity of his gaze made Emma's breath catch. She should have been terrified. This man had just admitted to being a criminal, to kidnapping her, to deciding her fate without her consent. But looking into those ice-blue eyes, she saw something beyond the danger. She saw grief, determination, and a fierce protectiveness that called to something deep inside her. "What if I say no?" she asked, even though she already knew the answer. "You don't get to say no." Dante's hand came up to cup her face, his thumb brushing across her cheekbone with surprising gentleness. "But I promise you this, Emma Carter. I will keep you safe. I will find everyone who tried to hurt you, and I will make them pay for even thinking they could touch what's mine." The possessiveness should have repelled her. Instead, it sent a shiver down her spine that had nothing to do with fear. "I'm not a possession," she said, but her voice lacked conviction. "No," Dante agreed, his voice dropping to a whisper. "You're something far more dangerous than that." Before Emma could ask what he meant, his phone buzzed. He stepped back, the intimate moment shattered, and answered with a curt, "Talk." Emma couldn't hear the voice on the other end, but she watched Dante's expression darken with each passing second. "When?" A pause. "How many?" Another pause. "Double security on all floors. Nobody gets in or out without my direct approval. I'm on my way." He ended the call and turned to Emma, his face now a mask of cold fury. "We have a problem." "What kind of problem?" "The Kozlovs know you're alive. Someone on my payroll sold us out. They just tried to breach the building's security." Ice flooded Emma's veins. "What?" "They didn't get past the lobby, but they know you're here. Which means this penthouse just became a fortress." Dante moved to a panel on the wall and pressed his thumb against it. A hidden door slid open, revealing an array of weapons that made Emma's stomach drop. He pulled out a handgun, checked the magazine with practiced efficiency, and holstered it at the small of his back. "What are you doing?" Emma's voice climbed an octave. "Protecting what's mine." He turned to her. "All business now. There are 12 men stationed throughout this penthouse. 6 more in the elevator lobby. 20 on rotation in the building. Nobody gets to you without going through all of them first. And me." He crossed to her, gripping her shoulders. "Emma, listen to me very carefully. You don't leave this penthouse. You don't go near the windows. You don't answer any communications that don't come directly from me. Understood?" Emma nodded, unable to form words. "Say it." "I understand." "Good." His grip softened, became almost a caress. "I need to handle this situation. Make some calls, remind certain people what happens when they betray me. You'll be safe here. Marco will be right outside your bedroom door. He's been with my family for 20 years. You can trust him with your life." As if on cue, a man appeared in the living room, tall, broad-shouldered, with graying hair and the bearing of a soldier. He nodded respectfully to Emma. "Marco, this is Emma Carter. She doesn't leave your sight. Anyone tries to get to her, you know what to do." "Yes, sir." Dante turned back to Emma, and for just a moment his mask slipped. She saw worry there, genuine concern, and something else that made her heart skip. "Will you be okay?" she asked before she could stop herself. His lips quirked in a small, dangerous smile. "Worried about me, Emma?" She didn't know how to answer that. Didn't know why her chest felt tight at the thought of him walking into danger. Dante leaned in and pressed a kiss to her forehead. Brief, possessive, burning. "I'll be back before dark. Try not to miss me too much." And then he was gone, leaving Emma standing in the center of a luxury prison, watching through bulletproof glass as the city sprawled below, oblivious to the war being waged in its shadows. Marco cleared his throat gently. "Can I get you anything, Miss Carter? Breakfast? More coffee?" Emma turned to look at the man who was now her guard, her keeper, her protection. He had kind eyes, she noticed. The eyes of someone who'd seen terrible things but hadn't let them destroy his humanity. "Can you tell me the truth?" she asked. "About who Dante Romano really is?" Marco was quiet for a long moment, considering. "Mr. Romano is a complicated man, Miss Carter. He's done things that would horrify you, but he's also done things that would amaze you. He's protected this city when no one else could. He's kept the peace between families that would otherwise paint the streets red. And he's carried the weight of his father's empire since he was barely more than a boy." Marco met her eyes. "Is he dangerous? Absolutely. But I've served 3 generations of Romanos, and I can tell you this. When Dante Romano claims something as his, he protects it with everything he has. You're safer with him than you would be anywhere else in this world." Emma looked back out at the city, at the life she used to have somewhere down there in those streets. A life that was now dead, mourned, buried. "What if I don't want to be claimed?" she whispered. Marco's answer was gentle but firm. "Then you should have run last night when you had the chance. Because now that he's seen you, saved you, claimed you, Mr. Romano doesn't let go of what's his. Ever." The words settled over Emma like a prophecy. Outside, the November sun climbed higher, burning away the morning mist. And somewhere in the concrete canyons below, Dante Romano was hunting the men who dared to threaten what belonged to him. Emma touched her forehead where he'd kissed her, her fingers trembling. What had she gotten herself into? 5 days. Emma had been trapped in Dante's penthouse for 5 days, and she was beginning to lose her mind. Not from fear, though that would have been reasonable. Not from boredom, though the gilded cage was still a cage. No, Emma was losing her mind because of the man himself. Dante Romano had become the center of her entire world, and she was terrified by how quickly she was getting used to it. He'd returned that first night just as the sun set, his knuckles bruised and his eyes cold with barely contained violence. Emma had been curled up on the sofa pretending to read one of the books from his extensive library when he'd walked in. Their eyes had met across the room, and something unspoken had passed between them. A question and an answer, a challenge and an acceptance. "It's handled," was all he'd said, pouring himself 3 fingers of whiskey and downing it in one swallow. Emma hadn't asked what handled meant. She wasn't sure she wanted to know. Now on the 5th morning, she stood in front of the floor-to-ceiling windows watching snow begin to fall over Manhattan. November had given way to an early December cold snap, and the city below was transforming into a winter postcard. Emma pressed her palm against the glass, feeling the cold seep through, reminding herself that the world outside still existed. Behind her, she heard Dante enter the living room, his footsteps purposeful even at 7 in the morning. She'd learned his patterns over the past days. He woke at 5, worked out in the private gym for exactly 90 minutes, showered, then spent the early morning handling what he euphemistically called business. By the time Emma woke, he was usually on his 3rd coffee and 2nd conference call, running an empire from behind a mahogany desk while wearing suits that cost more than her car. "You're up early," he observed, and Emma could hear the slight surprise in his voice. Couldn't sleep. She didn't turn around, didn't want him to see the confusion in her eyes. "I keep having this dream that I wake up back in my apartment, and all of this was just a nightmare. And when you actually wake up," Dante's voice was closer now, just behind her left shoulder. I don't know whether to be relieved or disappointed. The admission hung in the air between them. Emma finally turned to face him and immediately wished she hadn't. Dante was dressed for the gym in black athletic pants and a fitted t-shirt. that revealed the lean, powerful build he usually kept hidden under expensive suits. His dark hair was still tousled from sleep, and without the armor of his tailored clothing, he looked younger, more human, more dangerously attractive. "You're afraid of what you're feeling," he said, reading her too easily. "Afraid that you're starting to see this as normal, as safe. Shouldn't I be?" Emma crossed her arms defensively. "5 days ago someone tried to kill me. Now I'm living in a penthouse with a man who freely admits to being a criminal. Nothing about this is normal or safe, and yet you're here, still here, not fighting, not crying, not breaking down." Dante's ice-blue eyes studied her with an intensity that made her skin prickle. "Why is that, Emma?" "Because I don't have a choice," she shot back, but they both knew it was a lie. "You always have a choice." He moved closer, invading her space with that predatory grace she'd noticed the first night. "You could have run to the police 5 days ago, could have screamed when Marco escorted you to bed, could have tried to escape through one of the service elevators, but you didn't. Why?" Emma's heart hammered against her ribs. "Because you're right. The police can't protect me from people willing to stage my death and hunt me down. Because nowhere else is as secure as this fortress. Because..." She faltered, unable to finish. "Because?" Dante prompted, his voice dropping to that low rumble that seemed to bypass her brain and speak directly to something more primal. "Because I feel safer with you than I have anywhere else," Emma whispered, the truth burning her throat. "And I hate myself for it." For a long moment Dante said nothing. Then, unexpectedly, he smiled. Not the cold, dangerous smile she'd seen him use with his men, but something genuine, almost vulnerable. "Don't hate yourself for wanting to survive, Emma. It's the most human thing in the world." He reached out and tucked a strand of her auburn hair behind her ear, his touch feather-light. "Come on, I'll make breakfast." The domesticity of the offer was so jarring that Emma laughed, a slightly hysterical sound. "You cook? I'm Italian, aren't I?" "Of course I cook." He headed toward the kitchen, throwing over his shoulder. "Besides, you've been eating Marco's cooking all week." The man's loyal, but his scrambled eggs could be used as weapon. Despite everything, Emma found herself following him, drawn by curiosity and something she refused to examine too closely. The kitchen was a chef's dream, all marble countertops and professional-grade appliances. Dante moved through it with easy familiarity, pulling ingredients from the massive refrigerator. Eggs, cream, fresh herbs, Parmesan cheese. "Sit," he commanded, gesturing to one of the bar stools. Emma sat watching as he worked with surprising skill, whisking eggs in a copper bowl, chopping herbs with a knife that looked dangerously sharp. His movements were efficient, practiced, hypnotic. She found herself staring at his hands, those scarred, capable hands that could break bones or create beauty with equal ease. "My grandmother taught me," Dante said without looking up, somehow sensing her question. "Nonna Isabella. She came from Sicily with nothing but recipes and stubbornness. Said that any man who couldn't feed himself was only half a man." A shadow crossed his face. "She died when I was 16. Made me promise on her deathbed that I'd never forget where we came from." "And where was that?" Emma asked softly, sensing she was seeing something Dante rarely showed anyone. "Poverty. Real poverty. The kind Americans don't understand. My great-grandfather came here with $5 and a willingness to do anything, absolutely anything, to survive. The Mafia wasn't a choice for him, Emma. It was the only option for a man who couldn't speak English, couldn't read, couldn't get legitimate work because of the color of his skin and the sound of his name." He poured the eggs into a heated pan, the sizzle filling the silence. "By the time my father took over, we'd built an empire. Restaurants, construction companies, real estate. But the foundation was still crime, protection rackets, gambling, loan sharking. My father always said we were providing services the government couldn't or wouldn't. Robin Hood with better suits." Dante's laugh was bitter. "Took me until I was 20 to realize Robin Hood still ended up with blood on his hands." Emma watched him plate the scrambled eggs, perfect, fluffy, garnished with fresh herbs, and set it in front of her with toast and sliced fruit. The care he'd taken with the presentation was almost touching. "Then why stay?" she asked, picking up her fork. "If you knew what it was, why not leave?" Dante poured them both coffee before answering, his expression distant. "Because I tried. When I was 22, fresh out of Harvard Business School, I told my father I wanted out. Wanted to take my inheritance and build something clean, something legal. He laughed in my face. The memory clearly still stung. Said the Romano blood didn't wash off no matter how expensive the soap. Said I could run to the ends of the earth, but the family would always find me, always own me. What did you do? I defied him. Dante's voice went flat, emotionless. Started my own company, legitimate real estate development. Made my first million within 6 months. I was going to prove him wrong, show him that we could be more than what we'd been. And then, he stopped, his jaw clenching. Emma waited, barely breathing. Then men came to my office. Russian Mafia, the Volkov family, allies of the Kozlovs. They'd been waiting for me to split from my father's protection. They beat me until I couldn't walk, broke 3 ribs and my left arm, then delivered me to my father's doorstep with a message. This is what happens to Romanos who forget their place. Horror washed over Emma. Oh God, Dante. My father saved my life that night, Dante continued, his voice still eerily calm. Called in every favor, went to war with the Volkovs, nearly started a bloodbath that would have consumed half the city, and when it was over, when the Volkovs had been destroyed and I'd recovered, my father made me a deal. Come back to the family, take my rightful place as his heir, and he'd let me modernize the business, turn us legitimate piece by piece, until the Romano name meant power without blood. And you agreed. What choice did I have? Dante finally met her eyes. He was my father, and more than that, he was right. I was a Romano. That name is a crown and a curse, and I couldn't escape it any more than I could escape my own skin. So I came home, learned the business, all of it, including the parts that still make me sick. And when my father died 3 years ago, I inherited an empire built on violence and a promise to make it something better. Emma set down her fork, the food suddenly tasteless. Have you? Made it better? I'm trying. The vulnerability in those 2 words nearly broke her heart. I've cut ties with the drug trade, shut down most of the protection rackets, invested in legitimate businesses, but it's like trying to clean blood from white marble. No matter how much you scrub, the stain remains. And men like the Kozlovs, they see my reforms as weakness. They think I've gone soft. So they killed your sister to prove it. Dante's expression turned to stone. Isabella wasn't just my sister, Emma. She was my redemption. Everything I was trying to become, she already was. Good, pure, untouched by our family's darkness. She was studying social work at NYU, wanted to help at-risk kids. She had a boyfriend, a civilian, who knew nothing about what we really were. She had a future that had nothing to do with crime or violence or the Romano name. His hands clenched into fists on the counter. I kept her away from the business, kept her guarded but not caged, let her live a normal life because I couldn't. And then one night she went to dinner with her boyfriend in Little Italy. Just dinner, just a normal date, and 3 men dragged her into an alley and put 2 bullets in her head while her boyfriend watched. Helpless. Emma couldn't stop herself. She reached across the counter and covered his clenched fist with her hand. Dante looked down at their joined hands, as if surprised by the contact. The Kozlovs left a message on her body, he continued, his voice raw. This is what happens to Romanos who think they're better than us. They killed her to hurt me, to remind me that I couldn't escape this life, couldn't reform it, couldn't save anyone from it. Not even an innocent 23-year-old girl whose only crime was being my sister. I'm so sorry, Emma whispered, tears burning her eyes. Dante, I'm so sorry. Don't be sorry. He turned his hand over, lacing his fingers through hers. Be angry, be furious, because that's what I've been for 6 months. Angry at the Kozlovs. Angry at myself for thinking I could change anything. Angry at a world where men like them can kill innocents and face no consequences. Is that why you saved me? Emma asked. Because you couldn't save her? Dante was quiet for a long moment, his thumb tracing circles on the back of her hand. Maybe at first, he admitted. When I saw you about to die, all I could think was, not again, not another innocent girl, not on my watch. But Emma, he stood and moved around the counter, pulling her to her feet, his hands framing her face. You're not my sister. You're not my redemption. You're something I never expected and don't deserve. What am I? The question came out barely a whisper. Mine, Dante said simply, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. From the moment I pulled you from death, you became mine to protect, mine to keep safe, mine to... He was cut off by the sharp buzz of his phone. Dante's expression shifted instantly from open to closed, from vulnerable to dangerous. He pulled the phone from his pocket and answered with a curt, "Talk." Emma watched his face darken with each passing second. When he finally spoke, his voice was ice. How many? When? Casualties? Lock down the building? Full security protocol. Nobody in or out. I'm coming down. He ended the call and turned to Emma, and for the first time since she'd met him, she saw genuine fear in his eyes. The Kozlovs are here. In the building. Emma's blood turned cold. What? How is that possible? You said this place was a fortress. It is. Which means someone on my payroll sold us out. Again. Dante was already moving, pulling open a hidden panel Emma had never noticed. Inside was an array of weapons that made her stomach drop. Handguns, rifles, knives, ammunition. He grabbed a handgun and 2 extra magazines with practiced efficiency. What's happening? Emma's voice climbed despite her effort to stay calm. The Kozlovs just sent 20 men into my building. They've already killed 3 of my guards in the lobby and are fighting their way up. Dante turned to her, his expression fierce. Emma, listen to me very carefully. This penthouse is designed to be impenetrable. Steel-reinforced doors, bulletproof glass, panic room in the master bedroom with enough supplies to last a week. But I need you to trust me and do exactly what I say. Understood? Emma nodded, her heart hammering. Good. Marco, he called. And immediately the older man appeared, already armed and ready. Take Emma to the panic room. Lock her in. Nobody opens that door except me. Understood? Not even if they sound like me. The only way she comes out is if I open it myself with the biometric lock. Yes, sir. Wait. Emma grabbed Dante's arm as he turned to leave. Where are you going? To remind the Kozlovs why you don't attack a Romano in his own home. The cold fury in his voice made Emma shiver. You can't go alone. I'm not alone. I have 30 men in this building and another 20 on the way. The Kozlovs want a war? I'll give them a war they'll regret for whatever hours they have left to live. He cupped her face in his hands, and for just a moment the mask of the crime lord fell away, leaving only a man. Stay in that room, Emma. Stay safe. No matter what you hear, no matter what happens, you stay locked in there until I come for you. Dante, he kissed her. It was fierce, possessive, desperate, a kiss that tasted like gunpowder and coffee, and something indefinable that made Emma's knees weak. His hands tangled in her hair, pulling her against him as if he could somehow shield her with his body from what was coming. When he finally pulled back, they were both breathing hard. That's a promise, Dante said roughly. A promise that I'm coming back for you, that no one takes what's mine, that when this is over we're going to finish what we just started. Before Emma could respond, he was gone, moving with deadly purpose toward the penthouse door. Marco touched her elbow gently. Miss Carter, we need to go. Now. Emma let herself be led toward the master bedroom, her lips still tingling from Dante's kiss, her mind reeling. As they reached the bedroom, she heard the first gunshot echo through the building. Distant, but unmistakable. The war had begun. Marco revealed a hidden door in the back of the walk-in closet, leading to a room Emma had never known existed. It was small but comfortable, with a bed, bathroom, kitchenette, and wall of monitors showing various angles of the building. He ushered her inside and turned to leave. Marco, wait. Emma caught his arm. Is he going to be okay? The older man's expression softened. Mr. Romano has been fighting wars since before you were born, Miss Carter. He's survived things that would destroy most men. If anyone can end this, it's him. But nothing is certain in war, Marco finished for her. Which is why he needs to know you're safe. It's the only way he can focus on staying alive, knowing that you're protected, waiting for him. He squeezed her shoulder. Have faith. Dante Romano didn't survive this long by being careless. Then he was gone, and Emma heard the heavy locks engage, sealing her in. She was alone. Emma moved to the monitors, her hands shaking as she tried to make sense of the different camera feeds. She could see the penthouse living room, empty. The elevator lobby. 2 of Dante's men crouched behind overturned furniture, guns drawn. The stairwell. Her breath caught. Men in dark tactical gear were pouring up the stairs, moving with military precision. The Kozlovs. Even through the grainy security footage, Emma could see they were heavily armed and organized. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment attack. This was a planned assault. Another camera showed Dante striding through a hallway on a lower floor, flanked by 4 of his men. Even in the black and white footage, his presence was commanding, dangerous. He moved like a predator, gun held with professional ease, every line of his body coiled for violence. Emma pressed her hand against the monitor, wishing she could reach through the screen and pull him back to safety. Please, she whispered to no one. Please come back to me. The sound of gunfire intensified, echoing through the building like thunder. Emma watched, helpless as the battle for Dante's empire and her life raged beyond the walls of her golden cage. And for the first time since this nightmare began, Emma Carter admitted the truth she'd been avoiding. She didn't just feel safe with Dante Romano. She was falling for him. The realization terrified her more than any assassin ever could. The gunfire had stopped. Emma stared at the monitors, her heart in her throat, watching static-filled screens that showed nothing but empty hallways and motionless bodies. 15 minutes of hell. Explosions. Shouting. The unmistakable sound of men dying. And then, silence. The worst kind of silence. She'd watched Dante disappear into a stairwell 20 minutes ago, followed by his men. The camera there had gone dark 3 minutes later, either shot out or destroyed. Now she had no idea where he was, if he was alive, if he was... No, she couldn't think like that. Emma paced the small panic room, her hands trembling, her mind racing through every terrible possibility. The Kozlovs had come with 20 men. How many did Dante have? Were they enough? Had the attack been a diversion for something worse? One of the monitors flickered back to life, the penthouse living room. Emma rushed to it, pressing close to the screen. The room was destroyed. Furniture overturned, bullet holes in the walls, blood on the marble floor. Her breath caught in her chest. Whose blood? Dante's? Then she saw movement. The penthouse door burst open and men flooded in. 6 of them dressed in black tactical gear, weapons raised. Not Dante's men. Emma could tell from their movements, their formation. These were the Kozlov soldiers, and they were searching for her. "Check every room," one of them barked in accented English. "Romano's whore has to be here somewhere. Victor wants her alive." Emma's blood turned to ice. She backed away from the monitor, her mind screaming that she needed to hide, to run, but there was nowhere to go. The panic room was secure, Marco had said. Dante had promised she'd be safe, but promises meant nothing if Dante was dead. The soldiers moved through the penthouse methodically, kicking open doors, ransacking rooms. Emma watched helplessly as they approached the master bedroom. Her bedroom. The bedroom that concealed the panic room entrance. "Boss said Romano's protective of this one," another soldier said, his laugh cruel. "Must be special. Maybe we have some fun before we deliver her, yeah?" Bile rose in Emma's throat. They entered the bedroom, moved to the closet. One of them, a massive man with a shaved head, ran his hands along the wall, searching for the hidden panel. "There's something here," he muttered. "Wall sounds hollow." Emma's hands flew to her mouth, stifling a scream. They were going to find her. They were going to find her, and Dante wasn't here, and she was going to die or worse in this concrete tomb. The soldier's hand found the seam of the hidden door, and then the lights went out. Every monitor went black. The panic room plunged into absolute darkness. Emma heard a distant mechanical hum, backup generators engaging, but the screen stayed dead. Then she heard it. Gunfire. Close. So close it sounded like it was right outside the panic room door. Men screaming. Orders shouted in Russian. The distinctive sound of someone choking, dying. And through it all, a voice. Cold. Controlled. Absolutely lethal. "You came into my home. Dante." Emma's knees nearly buckled with relief so intense it was painful. He was alive. He was here. More gunfire. A body hitting the floor with a wet thud. Someone begging in Russian. The words cut off by a single shot. "You threatened what's mine." Another shot. Another body falling. The emergency lights flickered on, bathing everything in eerie red. Emma could suddenly see the monitors again. Grainy, dark, but functional. The bedroom camera showed a scene from a nightmare. 5 bodies on the floor, dead or dying. And Dante, standing in the center of the carnage, gun in hand, his white shirt soaked with blood, some his, most not. His face was a mask of cold fury, beautiful and terrible like an avenging angel cast from hell instead of heaven. The 6th soldier, the one who'd found the panic room door, was on his knees, hands raised, begging, "Please, please. We were just following orders. Victor Kozlov sent us. We didn't want..." "Victor Kozlov," Dante repeated, his voice flat. "Where is he?" "I don't know. I swear he just sent us. Said to get the girl." Wrong answer. The shot was execution style, clean, professional. The soldier crumpled without another word. Emma should have been horrified. Should have been sick. Should have been terrified of the man who'd just killed 6 people with the efficiency of someone taking out the trash. Instead, all she felt was safe. Dante holstered his weapon and moved to the hidden door of the panic room. Emma heard the biometric lock engage, heard the heavy bolts sliding back. The door opened, and there he was, bloodied, dangerous, alive. Their eyes met across the small space. Emma, just her name, but it carried the weight of everything. Relief, possession, need. She launched herself at him, her arms wrapped around his neck, and she didn't care about the blood, didn't care that he'd just committed murder, didn't care about anything except that he was alive and solid and here. Dante caught her, one arm banding around her waist, the other hand tangling in her hair. "You're okay," he breathed against her temple. "Thank God you're okay. I thought you were dead," Emma choked out, tears streaming down her face. "I thought they'd killed you. I thought—" "Shh, I'm here. He pulled back just enough to look at her, his hands framing her face, checking for injuries. "Did they touch you? Did any of them get in here?" "No, you stopped them, you—" Emma's voice broke. "There's so much blood. Dante, you're hurt. Most of it isn't mine." He winced as he moved. "I took a bullet in the shoulder, but it went clean through. I've had worse." The casual way he said it made Emma's heart clench. How many times had he been shot? How many times had he come this close to death? "We need to get out of here," Dante said, already moving into tactical mode. "The Kozlov's main force retreated, but they'll regroup. This building isn't safe anymore. They breached too many security points. I have a safe house in Brooklyn, completely off the books. We leave in 5 minutes." "What about your men? The building?" 12 casualties on our side, 23 on theirs." Dante's jaw tightened. "Marco's coordinating the cleanup and securing the building. But you and I need to disappear until I can figure out who the leak is." He led her out of the panic room, carefully guiding her around the bodies. Emma tried not to look, but it was impossible. These men had come to kill her, to kidnap her, to do unspeakable things. And Dante had stopped them with brutal efficiency. In the living room, more of Dante's men were arriving, already working to secure the scene. Marco appeared, blood on his sleeve but otherwise unharmed. "Cars ready in the garage, sir. Clean route to Brooklyn mapped out." "Good. Status on the Kozlov survivors?" 3 captured. They're being questioned." The pause before questioned spoke volumes. "We should have answers within the hour." "Make sure Victor Kozlov gets a message," Dante said, his voice dropping to something dark and dangerous. "Tell him this was his one free shot. Tell him Emma Carter is under my personal protection, and anyone who touches her dies screaming. Tell him." He pulled Emma closer against his side. "Tell him if he wants war, I'll burn his entire empire to ashes and salt the earth where it stood." Marco nodded grimly. "Consider it done." 20 minutes later, Emma found herself in the back of an armored SUV, speeding through Brooklyn's industrial district as snow continued to fall. Dante sat beside her, his shoulder now bandaged, having flatly refused Emma's pleas to go to a hospital. A doctor had been called to the safe house instead. "Tell me about your family," Dante said suddenly, breaking the silence. Emma looked at him, surprised by the question. "Why?" "Because they think you're dead. Because once this is over, you'll have to decide whether to go back to them or stay disappeared. And because I want to know who Emma Carter was before she became mine." The possessiveness should have annoyed her. Instead, it sent warmth through her chest. "My parents are good people," Emma said softly. "My dad's a high school teacher in Connecticut. Math. My mom runs a small bookstore. I have a younger sister, Lily. She's 22, just graduated from college. She wants to be a journalist." Emma's voice cracked. "They must be devastated. The funeral, the grief, thinking I'm gone. Would you go back to them? If you could." Dante's eyes searched hers. "If I could guarantee your safety, give you your life back, would you take it?" Emma was quiet for a long moment, really considering the question. 2 weeks ago, I would have said yes without hesitation. I would have run back to my ordinary life, my ordinary problems, my ordinary future. She met his gaze. "But I'm not the same person I was 2 weeks ago. That Emma died in that crosswalk, and this Emma," she gestured to herself, "this Emma has seen things, done things, felt things that can't be undone. I don't know if I can go back to being ordinary after this." "You were never ordinary," Dante said quietly. "Even before I knew you, I could see it in how you moved, how you thought. You asked questions no one else dared to ask. You saw patterns others missed. You weren't meant for an ordinary life, Emma. You were meant for something more. Something like this?" She gestured at the armed guards, the bulletproof vehicle, the world of violence they now occupied. "Something like us." The simple statement hung in the air between them, heavy with implication. "There is no us," Emma said, but her voice lacked conviction. "You're my captor, my protector maybe, but still, I'm the man you kissed back this morning, Dante interrupted. The man you ran to when I opened that door. The man you were terrified had died. He shifted closer, his hand coming up to cup her face. Don't lie to yourself, Emma. There's been an us since the moment I pulled you from death. The only question is whether you're brave enough to admit it. Emma's breath caught. He was right, and she knew it. Somewhere between the fear and the forced proximity, between watching him cook her breakfast and watching him kill to protect her, she'd crossed a line she couldn't uncross. This is insane, she whispered. You're a criminal. You've killed people. You've built your life on violence and crime, and I'm the only man in this city who can keep you alive, Dante finished. The only man who's willing to burn down empires to protect you. The only man who sees you as something more precious than all the money and power in the world. His thumb traced her lower lip. Does that make me a monster? Probably. But Emma, I stopped pretending to be anything else the day they killed my sister. All I have left is honesty and violence. And right now I'm being honest with you. About what? About the fact that I don't just want to protect you. I want to keep you. I want to wake up to you every morning and fall asleep knowing you're safe beside me every night. I want to show you my world. Not just the darkness, but the beauty too. The power, the freedom, the absolute certainty of knowing exactly who you are and what you're willing to do. His voice dropped lower. I want you to be mine, Emma. Completely. Not as a prisoner or a responsibility, but as an equal, as a partner, as something I've never had before and never thought I'd want. Emma felt tears burning her eyes. And what if I can't be that? What if I'm not strong enough for your world? You faced down armed killers with nothing but a locked door between you. You watched me execute 6 men and didn't scream. You've survived 2 weeks that would have broken most people. Dante leaned his forehead against hers. Emma, you're already strong enough. The question is whether you want this. Want me. Want us. The SUV pulled to a stop outside a nondescript brownstone. Through the window, Emma could see guards already in position, securing the perimeter. This would be their sanctuary, their fortress, their hideout while Dante planned his next move. She looked at the man beside her, bloodied, dangerous, offering her a life that made no sense but somehow felt more real than anything she'd ever known. I'm terrified, she admitted. Good. Fear keeps you sharp. Dante smiled, that rare, genuine smile that transformed his face. Stay terrified with me, Emma. Let's see where it leads. And then he kissed her again. Slower this time, deeper. A kiss that tasted like promises and danger and possibility. When they finally broke apart, Emma knew she'd made her choice. She'd chosen the monster. And God help her, she didn't regret it. 6 months later, Emma Carter stood in the conference room of Romano Tower, facing 12 men who'd built their lives on violence and intimidation. She was no longer the terrified analyst who'd nearly died in a crosswalk. Now she was something else entirely. The Meridian accounts are clean, she announced, closing her laptop. All offshore holdings have been liquidated and reinvested in legitimate enterprises. The FBI has nothing to connect us to the Kozlov money laundering operation. The men nodded, a mixture of respect and wariness in their eyes. Emma had earned her place at this table through intelligence and courage, and by taking a bullet meant for their boss. Dante entered, commanding immediate attention. His eyes found Emma's across the room, and something passed between them. Intimate, possessive, equal. Gentlemen, we're done here. His dismissal was absolute. The men filed out, leaving them alone. Emma touched the scar on her shoulder unconsciously, remembering the final confrontation with Viktor Kozlov. She'd seen the gun, seen the trajectory, and moved without thinking. The bullet had torn through her shoulder instead of Dante's heart. Viktor had died seconds later, executed by a man who'd nearly lost everything. Still bothers you? Dante asked, noticing the gesture. Sometimes. Reminds me how close we came. He crossed to her, hands framing her face. You saved my life. You saved mine first. Emma smiled. I'd say that makes us even. Never even. You gave up everything for me. Your family, your identity, your future. Emma thought about her parents in Connecticut, believing their daughter was dead. Dante had eventually arranged a carefully encrypted message. I'm alive. I'm safe. I can't come home. I love you. It wasn't enough, but it was all she could give them. I didn't give up my future, she corrected. I chose a different one. With a criminal. With a man trying to be better than his father. With a man who's transforming an empire built on blood into something legitimate. She pressed closer. With the man I love. Dante's expression softened. that rare vulnerability he showed only to her. The FBI offered you immunity yesterday, full witness protection, new identity, a chance to go home. Emma's heart stuttered. How do you know that? I know everything that concerns you. His thumb traced her cheekbone. What did you tell them? That Emma Carter died 6 months ago in a hit and run. She held his gaze steadily. And that the woman I've become has no interest in going back to who she was. Emma. No. She cut him off firmly. You told me I was yours that first night. You were wrong. I'm not yours, Dante. You're not my owner or my captor. But we belong to each other. Partners. Equals. Building something together that's bigger than either of us alone. Relief and love flooded his features. I don't deserve you. Probably not. Emma smiled. But you're stuck with me anyway. He kissed her then. Deep and claiming, a kiss that still made her knees weak after 6 months. When they finally broke apart, Manhattan sprawled below them through the floor-to-ceiling windows, a city of 8 million stories, and theirs was just beginning. I love you, Dante whispered against her lips. I know, Emma replied. You told me with 6 bullets in a penthouse cage, and you responded by taking a bullet and staying anyway. Crazy, isn't it? Completely. His smile turned genuine, warm. But I wouldn't change a single moment. Emma looked at the man who'd saved her, claimed her, loved her, and who she'd chosen every day since. Neither would I. Outside, the sun set over New York City, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson. And in the heart of Manhattan, 2 people who'd found each other in violence discovered something infinitely more powerful.